We're now going to set up the eyes for our character. This is going to be a two-part process. One is getting our joint system to make the eye rotate properly in the socket, and the second one is making a control system for the animator to manipulate it. So to start off with, yes, we are going to first bring back our geometry for eyes. And we are going to create joints. Now you could technically use the geometry to rotate around on, but the joint's going to give us a little more control over how we're aiming it in the control system later on. Okay, so our first thing is to create joints, and this is actually one of the more challenging things because his eye, the joint needs to be dead center in the eye, and it could be kind of hard, especially since his eyes are pointing away. You know, they're not pointing straight forward, to get that exact center. So what we can do is we do have two poles on the eyes. So I'm going to isolate selection on this. Okay. And I'm going to create two controls. Actually, I'm just going to create locators. And these are just pivot points on it. So that's all the way down there. I'm going to hold down V, and I'm going to snap one to one pole here. That's actually, I was on rotate. Okay, so we'll hold down V, snap that right to the pole on there, and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to snap the other one there. So that looks good. So what we're doing here is we are creating two contact points that we're going to connect our joints. So we do need two joints on here. So I'm going to create one joint. I'm going to go into my ortho view. And here, I'm going to create one joint somewhere in the middle, like that. And I'm going to hold down Shift and drag out. And I'm doing this to give myself direction for the eye, so it'd be pointing forward. And I'm giving myself good up access like that too. Also, I could use this to control the pupil or the iris or different things like that too. Okay, so let's go back into our view. Now, as you can see, it's not in the right position. And I could, like I said, no pun intended, I could eyeball this to get in this position. But what I could do instead is I can select my two drivers and then my joint as my driven. And if I use a point constraint, which actually does translation, I don't want to use the offset, so I can apply. It will snap between these 2 points perfectly, and it's live. So if I didn't exactly like the position, I can go from there. So I do need to test this because it looks like it's off. But you remember, the eye's pointing. I'm really only dealing with the dead center of this. The direction of this eye is going to be important for the aim constraint. So if I go into my other views, let's get out of isolate selection. Okay. So if I had these pointing forward, would that aim properly? So we do need to connect this. Now, I'm going to leave the constraints in there so in case I need to move this around later on. But I'm going to select my driver, or this is my joint, and then my weight, and I'm going to bind this. So I have my settings set on my bind, just do selected and distance because it's just a 1-to-1. So I hit bind, and now let's see if that moves around in the socket. It looks like it is. Okay. Let's look at our wireframe and see if it is. It looks like it's moving pretty good in there. Okay, so I do need to mirror this over. I'm going to undo that binding because I just really want to see that purpose. Okay, so it shouldn't be moving now. Now I can delete those constraints. I don't need them anymore. And I don't need the locators either. So I'm going to delete my constraint here. I'm going to name this. This is going to be my left I0 unbind. And this is going to be my left I02 waist. I'm going to delete my locators. I shouldn't need those. This is the character is symmetric. So if you have an asymmetric character, then you'd have to tweak that out exactly how the joint would be placed. So I'm going to mirror these over. Now I have it set up to replace the names already. So we should be good. Now I'm going to connect these into my head just like I did my jaw. I could do these indirect. I could do these as pads, but in this case I'm completely fine just parenting them to the head. Then I'm going to say joint, geometry, and I'm going to bind it. Joint, geometry, and bind it, and I'll do a last test to make sure I didn't mess anything up. Now I know there's an area where it could look a little, no, actually it looks fine. Okay. So those are pretty much our internal system for our eyes. Our next step will be setting our control system for those eyes.